Hi everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Awaken Radio. It is so nice to be back here with you on the podcast again after a bit of a break, and a bit of a break that, to be honest, I wasn't really anticipating. I knew that I was going to go through a big transition at the start of this year, which I touched on in my very first episode of this year. But I don't think I at all anticipated or realized how big it was going to be and how long it was going to take for me to really go through this transition of moving from Sydney to the Gold Coast and manifesting our new home up here, and really moving through the manifestation and materialization of this dream and this desire that I've been holding for 2, if not 3 years. It's been a really long-held desire of mine. And I think I anticipated it would be a relatively quick, clean-cut, simple kind of process, but it ended up being a lot more in-depth and intricate and challenging than that. So I really had to step away a little bit over the past couple of months to just hold myself through everything that was coming up through this transition. But now that I'm on the other side, and now that I'm here in this new life that I'm creating, in the full receivership of something that I've been wanting for so long, now that I'm here in the manifestation and materialization of my dream, I have so much to share with you. And I can really see, and understand what this whole process was about for me and everything that I needed to learn and integrate and embody through the process. Because every manifestation, the journey of manifesting anything that we want, is always such an incredible journey of learning and inner work and soul growth and becoming. It's never just about getting the thing. Every desire holds within it an inner activation, an inner initiation. It holds within it key lessons and learnings that you're supposed to receive and embody and integrate through the journey. And one of the things I've really realized is that unless you're integrating that, unless you're learning that, unless you're embodying what this desire is trying to teach you, you're not going to receive what it is that you want. Because so often we just want to rush ahead to the thing that we want. But life is like, no, there's particular things we're wanting you to discover and learn and embody within yourself through this journey. And until you really get that, until you really go through the journey of becoming who you're supposed to become, as you manifest this desire, your desire is not going to come. Because there's so much more than just getting the thing. And so now that I've come through this journey and I can really see everything I was supposed to experience and learn, I have so much I want to share with you. And I'm going to put it all into this episode for you. I want to give you a little insight into what I've been navigating. I want to talk you through the process I've been going through and really give you some of my key takeaways and learnings on manifestation that I've really integrated and embodied through the process of bringing this dream to life. And it has been such a powerful journey that it's actually inspired me to offer and create something new now. And I touched on this at the start of the year in my first episode of the year, but again, I didn't know how this was going to come to life. But now that I've materialized this particular desire, I have a beautiful new desire moving through me to teach manifestation, to really teach and share with you everything I know about manifestation that I've honestly been practicing for, over 15 years, but has really been solidified through this particular manifestation. So I have a new program coming that will be called Creatress. I'm working on it at the moment. I'm bringing it through at the moment. I'm hoping it'll be ready maybe within a few weeks to share with you. But as you're listening to this episode and you're resonating with what I'm sharing and you're getting value from these teachings on manifestation, see if this resonates with you, because if so, when I come to bring Creatress into the world, I feel it'll be a really, really powerful journey in helping you understand both the practicalities and the energetics of manifestation, how we work with magnetism, with our feminine energy, how we work with quantum physics and parallel realities and collapsing time, and really how to materialize and bring to life a soul desire of yours. So I'm working on that. I am really bringing it through, and I can't wait to share that with you really, really soon. But I want to give you some of the starting steps today in this episode. And so it all really begins with desire. And that's where I want to start with you. And that's where we'll be starting in Creatress. When I bring this program through, we're going to be starting with desire, because that's where it began with me. And that's where every manifestation begins, right? It begins with desire. And it's so important with our desires that we're not coming at desire from a heady space, from a space of, here's this thing I want or need, and I need it because it's going to complete me, and I need it because it's going to make me feel a certain way, and I need it because other people have it. But that we're working with desire from this space of heart and soul desires, intuitive desires, where it's almost like your desire chooses you, where you receive the desire moving through you. And desire is so sacred and holy and beautiful and powerful. And desire is something that really needs to be honored and fully received. Because when a desire moves through you, this isn't just you wanting something. This is a deeper part of you showing you what you're ready for, showing you what's next for you, showing you what wants to be made manifest in your life. Your desires are the vehicle through which you become the woman you're here to become. Because on the journey of bringing them to life, you're going to be moving through a journey of becoming a new version of yourself, embodying different aspects of yourself. And so every desire comes to you because it's what you're ready for. It's the vehicle that's going to take you to who you're here to become. And it's life showing you what you're ready to now experience and create in your life. And so it's so important that when we receive our desires, we claim them, we own them, we fully receive them, and we feel them from within our body. They can't be things that we just chase, that we just come up with. I see it as like a receivership. Like you know, in your open receptive space, you receive and feel this impulse moving through you of something that wants to be created, of something that wants to be materialized or birthed, or of a version of yourself that you're ready to become. And when you receive that, you claim that. You claim that. And this is a place where we can get tripped up with desire, because a lot of us have an interesting relationship to our own desires, and we're going to work on this in Creatress. I really want to help you look at your relationship to your own desires, because we can either be in a space of fully claiming them and owning them and saying like, yeah, this is my desire, this is what I want, and not even what I want, this is just what's happening next for me. Like, this is the next step for me. It's done. It's not even a wanting, it's like a decision. Yeah. Or we can be in a space with our desires where we constantly feel anxiety around them. We constantly doubt them and question them. We receive them and then immediately think, how on earth would I have that? Who am I to have that? How is that even possible for me? And sometimes we're in a space with our desire of abandoning our desires. Because here's the thing, and I learned this a lot through this recent journey that I've gone on, is that you can't abandon your desires the minute that you see some proof or evidence that they're not possible. Every desire is asking for your devotion. Every desire is asking for your commitment, your wholehearted commitment. It is asking for you to say, I'm going to claim you, I'm going to own you, and I'm going to keep my energy and my focus steady on you, regardless of whether I see proof or evidence of it being possible. Regardless if I sometimes see roadblocks or evidence that it's not manifesting. Regardless of whether that inner victim within me wants to give up and say it's not possible for me. Your desires are asking for your devotion. They are asking for your unwavering commitment and steadiness. And so often what delays our manifestations, materializing is not that we're not doing enough. It's not that we're not working hard enough. It's not that we're not worthy and we don't want it enough. It's that our energy isn't steady. Our energy isn't unwavering. Instead, our energy is flip-flopping. 1 minute, we're like, yes, I want what I want, and I'm going to focus on it, and I'm going to hold my attention on it, and it's mine. But then the minute something happens, we hit a roadblock, someone plants a seed of doubt in our mind, we see someone else has it and we still don't have it, it seems to be taking a long time, we give up. And we start to go into doubt. Oh, it's not going to work for me. I can't have it. Why isn't it working? And then our energy falls out of alignment with what we want and goes into smallness and contraction and limitation and the victim energy. And we fall out of alignment. And that's what delays our desire. Manifesting is that our energy is like 1 minute we believe in it, the next minute we're doubting it. 1 minute we're aligned with it, the next minute we're giving up on it. 1 minute we feel worthy of it, the next minute we think we're totally not worthy. It's that chopping and changing energy. But your desires are asking you to say, I claim you, I own you, I'm going to align with you. And I know at different times it's going to look like it's not possible, but I'm never giving up on my desire. And I will hold my energy on this, and I will hold this vision for as long as I need to. And so that was one of the big learnings throughout my journey of manifesting the desire that I've just materialized. Because there was a lot of times where I didn't see any proof or evidence that this was going to happen. I first received this desire about 2 or 3 years ago. It was about 3 years ago. It was 2019. I started to get the feeling that I was ready to leave Sydney, that I was ready to have a change and move somewhere else. I think it was when I started, I just met my partner, Jason, and I think I'd started really getting into feminine embodiment work. And I was craving to live in a place that more deeply held and nurtured my feminine. And that allowed me to be in an open, soft, flowing, receptive space. And where I was living in Sydney, it was intense. It's a fast-paced city. I just didn't feel it supported my nervous system. And so I started to get this desire moving through me. And I remember this voice saying to me, for you to feel more of how you want to feel more calm, to feel more in your feminine, you need to move. You need to live somewhere else that's going to hold that part of you. And so it was a deeper part of me showing me where I needed to be to receive and have more of what I wanted and embody more of the energy I wanted to embody, right? And the thing with that desire and with a lot of desires is you can receive them in one moment, but it doesn't mean that the moment you receive it is the time when it's meant to happen. I received that 3 years ago. It wasn't meant to happen then, but I was meant to receive it then because it was designed to start the process that I was meant to go through to materialize it. Yeah. So it's okay if you sometimes receive a desire long before the time that it actually manifests, like nothing's gone wrong if that happens. So I initially thought when I received this desire that I was actually going to move to Bali. That was my original thinking. And I went to Bali twice in 2019 and I thought I was going to move there with my partner. We were talking about it. And then, we came into 2020 and COVID happened. And we had 2 years, as many of us did, of restriction and lockdowns and not being able to move around and travel, border closures, a whole heap of things. And that was a very difficult time for me because I really, really knew I wanted to leave Sydney, but it was very clear that it wasn't the right time. And that invites you into a lot of surrender and trust. You really have to be trusting the divine timing of your desire. You have to be trusting why things are unfolding the way they're unfolding. Throughout that time, though, the 2 years, 2020, 2021, I made a couple of trips up to the Gold Coast. And that's when I began to really feel, this is where I want to be. And there was a real journey of readiness I had to go on because I knew it was a completely different way of living up here, a completely different frequency. And 2 years ago, 3 years ago, my fast-paced Sydney, that version of myself, she wasn't ready for this. She wasn't ready for the amount of space here. She wasn't ready for the slower paced lifestyle. She wasn't ready for, a life of less distraction and stimulation. I had to go through a process of readiness for that. And so I would come up to the Gold Coast every now and then for my photo shoots, and I would spend time with my friends here and walk around here and just be like, oh my God, this is the frequency. Like, this is where I want to be. But then I'd have to go home again to my Sydney life and just live my Sydney life, knowing that I had my desire, but it wasn't yet time to step into it. Okay, so even if you're in a place where it's not the right time for that desire to happen, or you are seeing it's just not realistic for it to happen now, doesn't mean you can't tend to your desire energetically. Doesn't mean you can't be visualizing it, imagining it, connecting with the feeling of having it, building your vision board for it. You can be working on it energetically, even if you can't yet be working on it physically. And that's important. You definitely want to do that. And that was a really important part of me, in my journey, is just because it wasn't time to manifest the desire now didn't mean I needed to abandon that. I could still connect with it energetically and get it, help close the gap energetically of living it, of coming to the feeling of it. And then I had this one experience where in 2021, I went up to the Gold Coast in February for a photo shoot. And I had a very clear experience of a beautiful little soul baby that was up on the Gold Coast, that she came through as a girl. And when I was here, I could feel her energy. I could feel this little girl. And she made it very clear to me that I needed to be here in order to bring her to life, in order to receive her, in order to come into this chapter of motherhood with her. And I remember leaving the Gold Coast in an Uber home in February and crying in the Uber because I could feel her saying to me, don't leave. And when you leave, when you go back to Sydney, you get further away from me. You can't feel me. And when you're here in the Gold Coast, you feel me. You're in the frequency that you need to be in to connect with me. And so I felt like I was leaving her. I felt like I was abandoning her when I went back to Sydney. And when I came back to Sydney, I started having conversations with Jason about, I think it's time for us to move to the Gold Coast. And initially he wasn't on board. It wasn't his desire. It was my desire. And so when you are working with a desire that involves someone else and they're not necessarily on board with it, one of the biggest things for me was really speaking from my heart and really helping him understand my why behind this. And I would share with him how I would feel when I was on the Gold Coast and the friends that I had up here and how it allowed me to be more in my feminine. And I shared with him about this little girl that I connected with up here. And I said, there's a little girl that wants to come through for us and we need to be in Sydney to have her. And that's when I noticed it hit him in the heart. And he felt it, and he felt what I was saying. And it was one of the first times I saw him really get on board with the vision. He really started to understand the why of why this was so important. And so we started the conversations and we began saying, okay, end of 2021, that's when we're going to move. And again, I had to be so patient because we then went into a 6-month lockdown in Sydney, which was intense. We couldn't leave the state. We couldn't leave our suburb. We went to a really full-on time with COVID, and that was very, very challenging for my mental health. But despite that, I would still spend every morning visualizing living on the Gold Coast, imagining myself walking on the beach up here. I didn't abandon my dream, even though there was no way that it was meant to manifest now. Now, this is my next point I want to bring in. The how of how your desire is going to manifest is not your job and is meant to be outside your control and is the piece of the puzzle you're meant to surrender. Because the way this whole thing manifested is completely different to what I was anticipating or expecting. So we were in lockdown. A lot of Australia was in lockdown in around August 2021. And my sister messaged me and she said, I just applied for a rental property on the Gold Coast. Now, she was living in Melbourne in lockdown. Everything was in lockdown. You couldn't get interstate. And my sister's an incredible manifester. She's a manifesting generator, actually, and she's very, very powerful. And she said, I've just applied for this property. She's like, I just saw it and it's where I want to be. And what's interesting was I had been talking to her all year about my desire to be on the Gold Coast, and she had begun to get on board with it as well. And she had begun to feel like, yeah, this is where I want to be too. So she put in her application and she got approved for this property. This stunning 5-bedroom property. Apparently 50 other people applied for it, the agent told her. She applied interstate without even viewing it, and she got approved. And the minute she got approved, I knew this was part of my manifestation. I knew this was my manifestation beginning to materialize in a way that was completely different to what I had anticipated. It was going to happen through her. So she made her move up. It then got to the end of 2021, October, and Jason and I made the decision. It was so weird. We just felt it at the same time. We're like, that's it. It's time for us to move. We were in lockdown again. To get into Queensland, you had to quarantine for 14 days. So we applied for a border pass. And around the same time, everyone wanted to move to the Gold Coast. And I think there was about 13,000 people that applied for border passes. So there was a big wait. And it got to the end of December 2021, we still didn't have our border pass. So you can see here with this desire, there was so much surrender and trust needed. There was so much trusting around the timing of it. And the invitation around this was really, just because there's delays, just because you can't see when it's going to happen, just because you can't see how it's going to happen, do not give up on your dream. That is one of the biggest messages I want to give you. Do not abandon your desire just because you can't see proof or evidence of how and when it's going to happen. That desire is asking for your devotion, your unwavering devotion to it. So we ended up getting approved for border passes just before Christmas, but ended up waiting until January before we came up. And what was crazy was by the time we were ready to move in January, it was literally days before we were about to go, the Queensland Premier opened the borders. She said, all right, borders open, anyone can come in now. So we didn't have to do quarantine. And that was so interesting for me to see how that aligned, because it was like the universe was saying, no, just wait, we're going to line this up at the perfect time. So we moved up to the Gold Coast. We packed up our whole Sydney life, put it in storage, and moved up to the Gold Coast to stay with my sister. Now see here how her moving up to the Gold Coast was actually part of my manifestation, but it unfolded completely differently to what I was expecting, right? So Jason and I came up and we said, all right, we're going to stay with my sister while we house hunt, thinking we'd be there for 2 weeks. And we ended up being there for 2 months. This transition went on for 2 months. And so now this is the part I really want to offer you around how I manifested the house that I'm now living in. Yeah. This was the second real part of the process. The first part of the process is really holding that desire, doing the inner work, doing the alignment work, connecting with the energetics of your desire, imagining yourself living it, being in the frequency of having it, even before it's here. That's all like the pre-work. And then what happens is it starts to materialize. You start to see, okay, little bits of the pieces of the puzzle are dropping in. And that's what happened for us. So then we got up here in January and February, and the process began of house hunting. And the Queensland rental market is nuts. I mean, a lot of people have relocated here. Prices have skyrocketed. It's very competitive. People are getting houses by paying, 3 months rent in advance, paying more than the asking rent. And we were like, whoa, okay, this is tough. Now, this second part of the process for me, there was so many big lessons and learnings in this, which are so important for us all to really embody when it comes to manifesting what we want. So as we were moving through the process of house hunting, one of the things I really committed to was using my body wisdom to make decisions, using my intuition and my human design. It was so weird. I had someone give me a human design reading back in 2021, and they'd gifted it to me, a free reading of my chart. And I'd listened to it and kind of been like, oh yeah, I'm not super interested. And then one day, it was just after I'd moved to my sister's place on the Gold Coast, I got this really strong feeling to go back to that audio. And I listened to that audio on human design and I was like, this is exactly what I need to work with to manifest what I want. I began to understand my energy of being a generator. I began to understand the sacral response that my body has to everything, and that as a generator, my job is to respond to life. So to see different things coming in my world and to notice, does my body have a sacral response of yes or have a sacral response of no, like that gut instinct body response. And so as we were moving through the house hunting journey, I committed to myself, I'm not going to take any house unless I get a sacral yes body response. So we started our house hunting journey and we viewed, because I kept a spreadsheet, 50 properties over those 2 months, like a lot. And I probably had 2 or 3 yeses in my body. And this was one of the really big challenges, was I was manifesting with my partner. He was like, babe, this house is great. Let's take this one. This one logically makes sense. People were like, oh, that one. I'd show it to my sister and she'd be like, yeah, you guys should live there. But I was like, yeah, but my body's not saying yes. And I had to practice such deep devotion to my body wisdom. And this is one of the reasons we don't truly get what we want in life. We override our inner wisdom. We override our intuition out of fear. We override that body yes and no. How many times have you been on the journey of manifesting something and you think, you know what, I'm being too picky. My standards are too high. I'm asking for too much. Maybe I should just settle a bit. Maybe I should just compromise. I mean, I initially had this vision, but it's looking like that's not possible. I can't get a job paying that much money. I can't meet a guy like that. The house that I want isn't possible. Oh, you know what? I'm going to start to lower my standards. I'm going to start to change my desire. I'm going to start to ask for less. I'm going to start to compromise. And what do? You start to shrink energetically. You start to ask for less. Then you manifest something and you go, okay, well, I guess I should just take this then. But it doesn't truly light you up. It's actually not the true full expression of your desire. Now, there were so many times in our manifestation journey that I could have settled. So many times. There were so many times that the things that we saw ticked, 7 out of 10 boxes. There were so many times when my mind tried to say to me, oh, Connie, this is good enough. Or he's really happy with it. Or, someone else says that's a great place to live. But I decided to never override my body's response. And so I waited and I waited and I waited for that body yes. And if you can do that, if you can have the courage to hold out for what you truly want, to not settle, to not shrink, to not compromise because of external pressure, because of what other people are saying. I had to not, one of the things that was a real challenge was the conflict that was coming up in my relationship. There was part of me that didn't want the conflict with him because we were fighting over it sometimes. And so I was like, oh, I'll just give in and take this place he wants. No. And so as we navigated the journey, I kept listening to my body. And if something was a body no, all I could say to him was, I'm sorry, it's not a yes for me. I know you think it's great. I know we've been looking for 2 months. It's not a yes in my body. So I really committed to honoring my human design and listening to my body's sacral response. That was a really, really important part of it. And along the way, I had a really big learning. One of the big learnings and realizations I had, and I wonder if any of you would resonate with this, is that my body and my soul loves high quality, beautiful things that sometimes have a price tag, that sometimes require quite a financial investment. And what I realized that most of the homes that I loved were kind of a bit more expensive. They were outside our budget. They were going to require a greater investment than I had initially been willing to make. And so here was another challenge that I had, another test was, can you feel and own and claim what you want and then be willing to put the money on the line to have it? To make the financial investment required to have what you want? Or will you get scared about the investment that's being asked of you? And so will you say, oh, that one's a bit indulgent. No, let's just take this, compromised version of my desire because I can afford it and it's safer. There was a big up level I had to go to about being willing to invest the money required to have what I wanted. We had to pay more money than we had initially anticipated. But I've experienced this so many times in my journey. I experienced it 3 or 4 years ago when I took on my own apartment in Bondi, paying the most rent I'd ever paid, having to fully furnish the whole place by myself. Even though it required a big financial investment, the energy activation I had because of how much I loved it and how in alignment the desire was, turned on my energy into such a space of magnetism that all the money that I needed came. Yeah. And because I stepped into a bigger version of myself to receive and hold that desire, I manifested the resources I needed. But if I had shrunk, and I'm going to tell you a story in a minute of how we almost did here. If I had shrunk and become smaller out of fear, my energy would have come smaller, my magnetism would have become smaller, and the amount of money I would have called in to support me with my desire would have become smaller. Money loves to have a purpose. If you give money a reason to come into your life, it's going to come in. And so in taking on a greater financial investment here, I am giving money a purpose to flow into my life now. I'm giving it a reason to be here. And in me expanding, I'm now becoming bigger and I'm expanding my capacity to call in money to support me to have what I want. I've experienced it time and time again. So the final little lesson I want to give you here that was really, really important is again around not settling and not compromising on your desires. So just before we found this home, we almost took another home. We had a house that we'd been approved for, that we viewed and applied for, that, I don't know, was kind of like 50-50 of what we wanted. It wasn't fully what we wanted. And we got approved for it. And we'd been house hunting for 2 months, And we got approved for this place. And I was like, I feel really calm here. I feel really grounded here. But, it had these daggy curtains that were kind of a bit yellow that we couldn't change. And the kitchen bench top was kind of a bit blue. And I knew it was a real compromise for me. It wasn't going to give me the real activation of the luxury and the beauty that I love to live in, that lights my soul up. And it also wasn't going to stretch me to become a bigger version of myself in the process of moving through the manifestation. Because every manifestation is about who you become along the way. Every desire is asking you to become a different version of yourself in order to receive it. Every desire is calling you into your next level. If you're willing to go there, if you have the courage to go there, if you can hold out for it. So we got approved for this place. And what was so interesting was the minute we got approved, I noticed my whole energy change. I shifted out of the energy of, we don't have a house, I'm desperate for a house, I'm so anxious, into the energy of, we have a home now. It's happening. It's all good. I can start to forward think now about living in there and decorating it, and my whole energy changed. I noticed all of this inner space open up. I noticed myself detach from the desperation. I noticed myself relax. And in that space, my manifestation popped. Here's the thing. When it comes to magnetism, when you are desperate for what you want, when you are fixated on it not being here, when you are only focused on the steps in the process you have to go through to try to get it, when you are feeling scared that it's not going to happen, when you are needing it, when you are attached to it, when you're clinging to it, you are repelling it. But when you drop into a space of ease, of relaxation, where you let go, where you're trusting, when you're in that space of those who are certain of the outcome can afford to wait and wait without anxiety, when you're in a place of pleasure where you're already feeling the pleasure of what it's going to be like to live in that even before it's here, your whole frequency is different. Your frequency is magnetic. And the challenge that I'd had throughout this whole transition period was I hadn't been tapping into my magnetism. We'd been in a really, we were staying with my sister. I didn't have my own space. I wasn't doing my own practices. Jason and I were fighting a lot. But what I noticed was as soon as this other place dropped in, we got approved for it, we accepted it, this beautiful joy and lightness came over me because I was like, we've got a home, yay. And then the next thing I know, Jason comes to me and he says, babe, look at this property. And there was this property online that was literally like my dream property. Like it ticked every single box. And I looked at him and I was like, oh my God, it's stunning. He's like, this place is awesome, isn't it? It's like exactly what we want. I was like, it's exactly what we want. I was like, if you could take my manifestation list and put it in a house, it would be this house. And I said to him, how interesting. This has popped the minute that I let go. The minute that I stopped looking at the online sites because we already had a house, the minute I stopped worrying about will we get a house because we just got approved for one, my manifestation popped. And he said, what do you want to do? He said, I think that we should view this. And now it wasn't available to view until the following week. And we had to make a decision on whether we were going to accept this approval that day. He said, I think we should take a risk. I said, I think we should take a risk too. And we should hold out for this one we really want, even if it means losing this one we just got approved for. And he said something really interesting to me that really stuck with me. He said, if we were to take this one now, he said, I feel like it was a really comfortable choice. It's just a choice really in our comfort zone. He's like, but if we were to take this other one, he's like, I feel like we would grow into it. Like it would really help us expand. And I was like, yeah. And he said, it feels really inspiring. Like it would really inspire us to like show up in our work and create. Whereas the other one just kind of feels like our comfort zone. And I was like, yeah, you're right. Okay. So I had to have a difficult conversation. I called the agent and I said, look, we're so grateful we've been approved, but we're not ready to move forward. We need some more time to think about it. And that was hard. Like the people pleaser in me really didn't want to say no to them. I felt really uncomfortable. But I felt like this was a universal test. Should we settle and take something that's in our comfort zone just because it's here? Or do we hold out for what we really want even though it's a risk? So we waited. We had to wait several days before we could view this place. And we walked in and we were just like, oh my God, yes, we love it. And what I had been waiting for the whole time was the feeling of walking into a house and having that sacral response in my body turn on. Having that inner yes in my body, having every part of my body expand and go, yes, yes, I love it. I'm excited by it. This feels amazing. This is what I want. I'd been waiting for that feeling and I felt that feeling and I said yes. And what do you know? We got approved for it. We got approved for it. This was our manifestation. This ticked every box. Walking distance to the beach, walking distance to the shops, walking distance to the farmer's market, a beautiful modern double-story place with gorgeous spaces, with a backyard, everything I'd written on my list. It was here. We'd materialized it. We'd manifested it. And had we settled, had we given up, had I overridden my body's intuition, had I caved to make someone else happy, we wouldn't be arriving here. And so now that I'm arriving here, and I did an Instagram live on this just the other day, I'm really allowing myself to soak up this feeling of I have arrived. I've been really letting every cell of my body soak up that feeling of success. And this is what I spoke on in my Instagram live, if you want to go watch it, is that so often we achieve a goal, we reach a destination, and we go, oh, okay, yep, I've reached that now, on to the next thing. All right, that's done. Cool, success, on to the next thing. And we never really allow ourselves the time to soak up and sink into the feeling of, I have arrived. I have what I want. It's here. I've received it. I've materialized it. We forget how long we wanted it for. We forget how long we were in the space of waiting and waiting and waiting. Because here's the thing. For you to become magnetic to what you want, The feeling of having what you want has to become familiar. The feeling of I have it, it's here, has to become a familiar feeling in your body. For as long as you are in the energy of I lack it, it's not here, I don't have it, where is it? You're out of alignment with it. Because once it arrives, you're not going to be sitting there being like, where is it? Where is it? I'm anxious. You're going to be like, it's here. I've got it. I'm relaxed. So the sooner you can embody that energy, the faster it comes in, because you're in alignment with the person you're going to be when it gets here. And so it's so important that anytime you manifest something, anytime you receive something you've wanted, you let yourself sink deep into the feeling of having it, of receiving it, of being a success, of having achieved what you want. You want to make the feeling of success, of having what you want, of arriving where you want to be, familiar in your body. Familiar. So your nervous system is no longer programmed for lack and scarcity and desperation and need. Your nervous system and body is used to and familiar with the feeling of success, the feeling of having what you want, the feeling of arriving, the feeling of, yeah, I do get what I want. Yeah, my desires do materialize. I'm a success. And we can only really program that in if we let ourselves sink into that feeling and let every cell of our body fully experience it and soak it up in those moments that we are in the receivership of something we want. And so I've really given myself time since I've been here, because I heard that voice in my head that was like, okay, cool, we've unpacked, we've got the house, now let's move on to business goals. Off we go, next goal. No, I wanted to give myself time to celebrate this. So I remember I spent all weekend just walking around the streets, breathing it in, soaking it in, letting my body take on the shape of I have arrived, I am a success, I have what I want, my desire has materialized, I'm here, I'm here, I'm here. And now when I move forward towards whatever next thing I'm moving forward towards, I'm carrying a feeling of success in my body as I do it. I'm carrying a feeling of fulfillment of my desire. I'm carrying a feeling of I am someone who has what she wants. And then the next time I go to materialize something, that is now infused into that. Versus if you get it and then you don't even take time to celebrate it, you're still empty. You're still lacking as you move forward to the next thing. And you're like, oh, it'll be the next thing that'll make me feel this feeling. No, the more that you can carry that feeling in your body now, the more magnetic you are as you go to create the next thing you want in your life. So this was, oh my God, such a big journey, which is why this has been a big episode sharing all of this with you. But I really wanted to just sit down and flow chat and really just talk you through everything that I've been navigating, because it's been obviously several months since I've done an episode. So I hope this was valuable for you. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it was insightful and interesting to hear the behind the scenes of how I navigated, the materialization of this. If you loved this conversation, I have so much more coming for you on the topic of manifestation. It feels so alive in my body. I feel so embodied in knowing how to materialize and manifest things now, and really understanding the lessons and the learnings, and in really having walked through the fire of this. So I'm going to be bringing you a lot more content on manifestation. I'm going to have some trainings coming up, and this beautiful new course, Creatress, is coming. I really want to help activate you into your divine feminine creative power, because you have the power and ability to create what you want. Your desires are sacred. They are showing you what you're ready for. They are here to be made manifest. And I want to help you manifest and experience them. Not because you can't be happy without them, but because there's an incredible journey of who you're here to become through the process of materializing them. And you are here to be a woman who is living as a creator, living as the receivership, in the receivership of everything she desires, living a life that brings her pleasure and joy and lights her up and feels deeply fulfilling in her heart. You're here to have all of that. And I want to help you experience that through Creatress. So keep an eye out in the coming weeks for an update on that. I can't wait to share more. But But yeah, for now, thank you so much for being tuned in to this episode of Awaken Radio. If you love this episode, share it with a friend, share it on Instagram stories and tag me. I'd love to hear your takeaways from this episode, and make sure you are subscribed to Awaken Radio so you never miss an episode in the future. Thanks so much for being tuned in today, and I look forward to talking to you again next time.